All right, and we're live. Welcome everyone to day 4 of the Dev Advent Calendar, where today we're going to actually continue some of the work we've been doing in the past live stream sessions, where we're going to be building, sort of continuing the work on this space game that I've been working on in Vue 3 in a way to sort of like, just sort of have just a new sort of scenario to play around with composition API and sort of see just how far we can take it. So with that, let's go ahead and switch on over to VS Code. So I'm in my Vue 3 lab repository, just like we were before. So, for anyone who's new, basically, I find that like it's useful when you're building things a lot of times to have sort of a scratch pad to like try out different things. And so while there are tools, certainly like Code Sandbox, CodePen, I think for doing that kind of thing, for me, I like having the reliability of basically having something that I can like refer to later on. And so sometimes if I'm just like prototyping something and then I don't commit it and I walk away, then I end up finding that like later on I'm like, oh, I had that thing I tried. I kind of want to build on that again, and it's not anywhere. And so for that reason, I like having a dedicated repo. That way, it's also I don't have to also think too much about like commit messages and stuff. I still try to do it, but like otherwise, like this is really just a place for experimentation. Absolutely not something you'd want to follow best practices wise or anything. It's just like just a way to ideate, right? Because sometimes when we're in that mode, we really don't want to be bogged down with processes. So, okay, let's take a look. Let's go ahead and get our server started up. And so one of the things I ran into, so I think for those who've been following, I've actually been trying to use the VS Code terminal a lot more, just because it's sort of that integrated experience with obviously like VS Code. The one thing I did run into recently though was that I had this really weird bug and the logs were super long, and unfortunately, it looks like VS Code, like the terminal in there, I think it probably has this reason, but it has a limitation with how much you can basically scroll up. And that was basically useless for me because basically the thing I wanted to scroll up to wasn't able to. So for me, I think for now, I'm going to say like I'm sort of settled to the fact that when it comes to things like running the server or like it's going to have probably a lot of log output, I think I'm for now. Oh, wait, sorry, I need to go to GS. I think I'm going to still stick to having a dedicated terminal for that just because that way there is that reliable space for when something is breaking, that I know that I can just scroll through an infinite amount of logs. And maybe there is a way to do that with VS Code, but it wasn't immediately obvious to me. So I'm taking the path of least resistance on this one. So, all right, let's go ahead and open up Chrome and toss it over here. All right, so we're at 81. All right. So let's just bump that over 2/3 in case we need it later. Bump this over 2/3. So I'm trying out a new format right now in terms of having sort of me on the left with just like, and so the screen is a little bit smaller, but I think I'm gonna try to make sure the font is bumped up. But this way, I think I found that when I was in the lower right corner, I ended up sometimes like in that like, especially with this window on the right, that I was either like hiding, like it was basically covering things up on the dev tools and stuff. So I've sort of been trying out this position going forward, and please feel free to give feedback if you find that you prefer the full screen with the corner. But yeah, so that's why we're trying this out. So okay, we are going to space games. That's where we're at. So let's sort of revamp where, what the heck? All right, space game. Great. Okay, so got a lot of random things showing up right now. So let's go ahead and look into this. All right. So, so again, for those who are following for the first time, basically what I'm trying to do here is build a series of mini games that the user has to complete in order to hit some sort of win condition. So in this case, like if they hit 3 mini games, then they will have won, because in this case, I've only built 3. And so we'll see here if I open the so the folder back up, you'll notice here I have 3 different mini games. The first of which was really just a basic like password input, and just basically can the user type in what they see. And then the other one was basically I believe this one was a color sequence one. So this was the other one. And then finally the one we were in the midst of building is the ability to actually line up the colors. So basically the left one would be your preset, and you have to line it up over here so that, as you can see here, when I select the wire, it's red, and then it would kind of come all the way over to like the match wire. And if it's matched, then you would get like a true. And so there's like some checks in here for that. I realized though, as I'm doing this, I don't have my second monitor up right now because I'm pretty sure I accidentally blew out one of the USB-C ports on my MacBook Pro because I was trying to do one of those like display and power in one cables. So right now I don't have a second monitor, so I realized if any of you are commenting, I'm not going to see it. So let me see if I can at least bring up the chat window in a different thing. Okay, great. All right, so at least I have it on my phone. That's nope, no, I won't see. Okay, this way at least I'll have the chat, and I'll try to make sure to periodically check in. But yeah, please feel free to, as you have questions or you want to talk about something totally different, I'm happy to. But let's go ahead and get started. So right now, I think we got it to the point where we were just drawing a triangle inside because I was sort of approaching it using the canvas method with HTML. But someone had made a point at the end of the last live stream that really, this seems like a really good opportunity for an SVG. And so if we think of it like this, I think maybe I'm trying to think of the easiest way to play around with this before, because there's a lot of code in here at this time. I am, in this particular case, because I just kind of want to play with the SVG piece of it, I'm actually going to use CodePen for this. And so let's go ahead and create a new, let's create a Vue pen. So in case, for those who didn't know, CodePen basically now has this functionality where you can write single file components. And that will basically render the prototype on here, which is awesome because now this means that like you don't have to go in and basically like get the CDN and set everything up. Like this is how most of us code, so this is how you kind of would hope that it works. Sorry, like when you're prototyping. So this is epic. So I'm just gonna give this a name right now though. I'll call it SVG line experiments. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is have the ability to draw a line with SVG, right? So I'm just going to see if CodePen has another example. Like, here we go. We already have probably a simple example. This one draws a line. Yep, okay. So let's just go ahead and take this as a baseline for our template. So not app. So it looks like this is Vue 2, but that's fine. We can totally, there's nothing really all so different from Vue 2 to Vue 3 in this regard. So we have our SVG, ID, line, fine. These are a bunch of properties. That's fine. Width, height. Okay, so width we might want to actually make dynamic. So what I'm going to do is we're going to create a form. Does this thing format? Can I format it? There we go. Much better. All right, so we have the SVG here, but what we want is we're going to want a form that will sort of allow us to basically change some things. So I'm not going to worry about semantics right now because we're just, again, this is just a scratch pad, not for other people to use. So a couple things. One, we have this width thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an input type number. vModel is equal to line width is what we're going to call it. And yeah, I think the only other thing is to just give it for line width so that we have a pairing. So this is mainly for my sanity, just because I'm gonna have a lot of different form elements very shortly, and we need to be able to, okay, great, line width here, and then so I can bind our width here, and so theoretically I would want it to be line width and then the pixels. So that's why we need to do it like this. And then I just need to have the data to be line width, and in this case, let's just do 1200. Okay, great. So again, if I change to 600, yes, okay. Already super promising. We're seeing that the line is dynamically updating with our properties, so that's good. And then the next thing we want to do, so this is already giving me a lot of hope and promise. So fill here, stroke width, yeah, so I'm guessing I can just bump this up and that will make it much thicker. Yep, that's good. I can change the color of this. So this is good, great. And I think that's basically it. No, you know what though? This is a little bit of the problem is it's just a straight line right now, but I want to define the path from like one area to another. So what this D property seems like it's kind of important. SVG path coordinates. Maybe we try to figure out how to understand how to pass. Polyline. Okay, so m dx dy. Okay, so let's learn SVG lines together. We're doing the path right inside. So inside this SVG box, M stands for, how am I going to remember this? Move to. Okay, M is move to. So we wanted to start at a certain point and then line 2. Okay, so move to line 2. So how does that work when you combine them? What's H? Horizontal? No, it's fine. Move to height. I don't really care. Okay, so move to line. Okay, great. So in terms of, yeah, thanks Devo. Thanks for stopping by. I'll see you in the recording later. Okay, so here actually it looks like the L is right here now that I realize. So this is good. So now that I'm thinking about it, this means that I can back this down to 120 and we should see this drop. Whoa. Oh, okay, that was good. So that dropped dramatically. That's totally fine. Oh, that's why. It's because this has an animation on it right now. Oh, right, and I'm on the wrong one. Okay, so here we go. So line 0, 0. Okay, I only want you to go to, let's say 120. So this should jump all the way down, right? Because the box is, how big's the box right now? How big's the box? Okay, so, oh, okay, the box is here. I'm usually seeing a box size, but that's fine with me. Okay, and then 0, 0, 120. Okay, so then I think this is all we need from like a component example. I think this is basically the line we're looking for. So I'm gonna grab this and we're gonna destructure this into what we need. All right, so that was fun, and I think we got what we needed. So what we want ideally is every, so where are we? So let's go drop into our template. Okay, so we have like the user wires, right? This is what we are defined here. This is what the answer is. We need basically every li to have a line that starts here. And then when we click on it, we're allowed to call it, edit it, and pass in like a dynamic point. So how do we do this? Okay, the simplest way to start is to, let's get rid of the canvas. I think that's going to be the thing we got to refactor out. And this is going to be, yep, I had a feeling that's going to happen. So the wire board is most likely has a flex. And then I'm just going to say justify content space between. So that should bump them up apart again. Great. So that's good. But now I got to get rid of all this canvas stuff because we're no longer using canvas. We're going straight SVGs. So there we go. Use draw canvas. So this, you know, for those who weren't here last time, is actually we had abstracted out the draw canvas functionality into a composable, which is what some people are calling the composition functions, but basically, and so I'm calling them features. So I just want to, again, you're gonna see the terms used. I get, and so I won't go on my soapbox today. I'll try to create a whole dedicated video for those who want that explanation. But basically, so we have a feature here for being able to draw the canvas. As you can see here, there's really nothing special here that's Vue specific. So I guess I'll get on the soapbox a little bit for this, is that in here, besides the fact that we have a draw function that we're exposing through something we're exporting as a module, as you notice, we're not even using reactivity from Vue. And so that is one of my sort of arguments against calling them composables, because it gives that impression that there's going to be something Vue in here. And as we can see, there's nothing not. Sorry, there's clearly nothing in here that's Vue specific. So for now, I'm just going to wipe that out. We can leave that in case, again, this is the beauty of like a lab sort of repo, is that I don't need to clean everything up to be optimum. We can just save that. Maybe I'll use that draw canvas for something else. Okay, so we have that here. Let's save, and use draw canvas is defined and never used. Great. Let me clean this up so at least we have a little less to do. Draw is not defined. That works for me. And oh yeah, that's because we exposed it here. All right, and then everything's broken. Why is that? Draw is not defined. Refresh. There we go. Okay. So I have noticed that a little bit of an oddity, something with the Vue CLI. Depending on how things in setup work, if you crash it a certain way, like as you can see, we're just sort of randomly deleting dependencies. Sometimes you actually do need to manually get in there and hard refresh. And if it crashes, it's not necessarily something you did. So to keep things simple, so many control Ds. All right. I don't know if you all get that. Whenever I click a link on the terminal in VS Code, it just like blah, just like shoots all that stuff out. Okay, so what did we do? We cleaned up factor remove canvas. All right, that's all I did. Okay. So for every single like line we have, we're gonna want to draw it from one to the other. And so currently we have the panels on the left, we have a panel on the right. So theoretically, each one of these list items should contain this said line. And so I'm just gonna do this real quick for demonstration purposes. So if I save this, okay, great. So we have the line here, but it's clearly a little weird because we really want it to be on the outside of the block. And so I'm guessing there is probably something we could do positioning wise. So I am thinking we probably would need to change the way things are styled. In a way that like this is its own block, like this. And then, whoa, what just happened? Okay. So this would be its own div, and then, yeah. Okay, and then from here, we have our SVG. I think this is how I want to do it. So again, just to make sure that I'm gonna only bind the background color to this, so that hopefully if this makes sense. Okay, not too shabby. We have it here and here. I'm gonna try something real quick though in my style. I just wanted to display flex. Ooh, okay, align item center. Okay, so this is good because what we want here is we basically want to, yes, this is good because we want the line. I mean, when you're drawing something, right, it's just cleaner to look from dead center as we're drawing out. So this is good, but this is already looking a fair bit complicated for our markup. So I am tempted to pull out this into a component because we're already looping through it. This is a specific type of line, and then we probably want to. Okay. Before I get too much into it, I'm actually not gonna focus on refactoring. Okay, so let's do this. So let's just say all of this starts out at 10 pixels. And the reason why we're gonna start at 10 pixels is because I wanna actually visibly see something. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and change the background color to something totally different. So let's change it. I'm just gonna do black. I think that'll be the easiest. There we go. Okay, so all of them are black. And so a couple things. One, when we click on something, right, the selected wire, we should be able to actually then correspond that to the color. So yeah, okay, I'm gonna need the component instant, I'm pretty sure, because we're gonna need to tell it which one is activated. Let me make sure okay, great. So click change color, but I think the hardest part is like changing the color we can manage. The real question is, can we get it to match up to this, because we have the mouse position, right, that we're tracking. And so we have this here, and then, all right, again, we're just gonna do it because if it breaks, it breaks. What we really want here is this X and Y, which if I go up into here, I think we have mouse position X and mouse position Y is what I'm saying. Mouse position, it's an object with X and Y, yep, okay. So if this works correctly, mouse position dot X, and so mouse position dot Y, save. Okay, so oh, okay. This kind of makes sense. Oh yeah, because your SVG is limited. So theoretically, if I made it 100, So let's make it 1,000. Refresh. Okay, this is... Oh, right. That bumped it way too far. Hold on, 200 pixels. Okay. So this is interesting. You'll see here, it looks like it kind of works, but it doesn't at the same time. Okay, I think there's a couple reasons for this. One, let's make every single item in here consistent. So I'm just gonna call it width 200 pixels. So we can sort of trust the math on this. Why? Oh, I should not be doing it here. The div is what we want the width to be on. So width is gonna be 500 pixels. Okay. Oh, too much. 50? Good in... Wow. Can type. Okay, 100. So the tricky thing is we need the SVG to fill up from here to here. And so really when the user draws the line, it's interesting to me that it's not actually drawing that fast. And because we're starting from 0, 0, and then length ending. Like it should be, so if I freeze it here, we should have like, let's see what the properties are here. Yeah, so 0, 0 length 269, but I think it's probably because the SVG itself is 200 pixels wide. Height is 500. Oh. Okay. Actually, this might make more sense. Because the SVG itself needs to basically fill up the whole thing. I think I misunderstood something. I think I had the right idea with the canvas, actually. Not saying that I should have used canvas, but that in between these two is basically what you want. So again, background, oh, sorry, let's do, oh, I don't need to define that. Style equals border 1px solid red. So yeah, so you see that? So this is good in the sense that we've now detected that this is in between, but it really should take up the whole thing. So if I did flex 1, I don't know if this will work. It does respect it. Okay, that's great. So I could theoretically, I think, delete this width and it would still work. Okay, that's good. But then I'd like it to actually stretch. So justify content, is it align item stretch? It might be align item stretch. Align items stretch. Let's see if I'm right. Not totally there. So we have these elements here, which is the panel. And then here's the SVG. The question is, yeah, so if I do flexbox stretch to fill. Yeah, this is the one I want. So I'd love this thing, always refer to it, stretch, show me stretch. Align start, yup. Oh, okay, sorry. That's what I forgot. When you're using flexbox, it's not the, I guess align self would theoretically work because I'm trying to align the items within it. But if I did align self, I think that didn't do it either. Okay, never mind. Okay, so what I do know is that we need to actually make it so that inside of the flex here that contains everything, I actually think in this one is stretch. So theoretically, if I refresh, I was so sure about, oh. That's why, because this is the wrong li. I don't care about this anymore. We no longer are trying to align it directly in here. So we're good on this end. Back to close. Great. Close that out. Save. Good. All right, so the wire board is what I need to change. This is align items, and if this works, then I'll explain, because clearly I have gotten... Okay, so it did stretch. Why isn't it working? Oh, wait, why is this thing huge now? Yeah, why is... Oh, I have a set height. Hold up, let me wipe that out. No set height. Please auto-calculate. Yes! Okay, it worked correctly. And now, yes. Okay, something is working much closer to what I wanted. Okay, so what happened here? So so clearly the SVG boundaries that we had set with the width and the height, those take precedence, right? That makes sense. They're inline styles. But on the other hand, what we wanted to do is have all the items stretched to its full, like, because Flexbox, again, if you think about it, is really just about a single row. And then whether or not the items, as we saw, actually, just to use this as an illustration, you get a chance to sort of align where, based on its content width, like where it goes. And so this is why I can do things like centering, so that it's all like horizontally aligned in the middle, versus like drop to the bottom, flex N. And so stretch, on the other hand, which is what we really want, is basically allows everything to take that full height of whatever it is. And so now that we have this is good. But we end up with the slight... We have a fun little problem to solve. Okay, so the path, as we can see here, is always this 0, 0. But this line is way too thick now. That's fine. And then theoretically, right, again, let's do it the real manual way. This thing has a height of 22, which you see in the upper right, 71.7 by 22. So that divided by 2 is 11. So that's really where it probably should be starting. So I believe we want to keep this 0 and then keep this to 11. And then that should drop it kind of halfway, which is good. And then, okay, you can see here now. Interesting that the box has dropped so far down, but we'll figure that out. So the only thing I don't like about this, though, is that why is the positioning so far off? It must be because... Right, it's only proportional. Okay, yep, it's based on the window X and Y as opposed to the X and Y inside of the SVG. That is the problem. And so, yeah, here you can see that it's tilted correctly, but it hasn't basically ratioed it. So we almost need to, or not even almost, we would need to do a calculation between, oh boy. Yeah, I basically need to figure out how tall this thing is before it gets down here, and that's where the mouse position starts. We basically need the mouse position from within the SVG. So, thinking on this, okay, let's see. I can't be the only one who's needed, right? So get mouse position within SVG. Mouse position inside. Yep. Cursor. It coordinates. Yep. So do people have to do math for this? Math. Screen space. So there is a transformation. So I don't know if that's really what I want. How do you get mass on an intro to SVM coordinates? This is an Elm thing, but I seriously doubt it. Okay. Relative to SVG. Yeah, this is the part where it's going to be a little bit trickier because we have this dynamic piece where there's clearly a ratio in which you can see if I go, oh, it's only watching in here actually even. So you'll see that it even stops. So there's a couple things wrong with this already. Okay, so what, like any good, so let's start by brute forcing this. One is we know, let's do a couple things. One, we know how tall is this. This is 22. This here is 33, 55. So how 22, 44, 77, 77, 121. Some of these are not going to be total. It's not going to be 121, 121, 154. So theoretically, if I push the y coordinate down by 154, that should solve some of our problems. Unless I did it I did it the opposite way. Maybe I subtract 154 actually. Okay, this is a little closer now. So you can see here the mouse and the line are getting closer to one another. So I'm just gonna, again, let's just brute force this real quick. Okay, so almost there. Let's do 250. Okay, this is basically correct. Again, rough around the edges, but it'll do. The only thing now is the X position, where we would then need to make sure that whatever I'm saying here, so we basically have to coordinate from left to right. Man, this is tricky. Okay, so we're clearly at sort of a little bit stuck. And so and again, in a perfect world, we would have the algorithm for translating our mouse position to what because theoretically, right, we don't even need to track the line out here. This is actually overkill. What we need is like when we click on here, it starts the line here, and then based on the mouse coordinate, it would technically draw as long as that distance is between like 0, 0, and did I just inadvertently figure that out? No. I don't think I did. No. Yep. I don't think. Because it knows its coordinate here. Okay, anyways. So when we click here, if we click the right one, we basically want that SVG line to draw from here to here. So maybe that is enough. So the first bug I actually do want to fix though is I'm not understanding why it's aligning all the way down, given that, let's see, SVG, stretch, solid, wireboard, take out the stretch. It didn't do anything. Because the panel, yeah, the panel's only this. Why is the panel so big? Stretch. Okay, save that. Refresh, please. And it's still saying that. I wonder why. Okay, I think I'm getting a little caught up in the UI piece of this right now. Okay, so let's take a pause from this. So we kind of have like an SVG-ish scratch pad. So I'm just gonna commit this, add SVG experiment or line experiment. Okay, this is the problem with like scope creep and stuff, right? You have this kind of one thing you envision and you kind of let it eat up everything. So for now, I'm actually going to knock out the SVG for now, because the important thing here we really want is to go, did they click, did they match, and then did they click, and then match, click, match, click, match. And then when it's true, as you can see, it's echoed here 1. So to be honest, the fact that we have this at this point means that we're actually really close to a finished, we're very close to a finished like flow, and that's what we really want at this point. Okay, so we have the mini games. Okay, so we have all of these things. What we then want in the space game, so we have the mini game 1, game status, game properties. Bring this back in. Okay, game status started. Yup. So how could we do this? We could say when the user starts the game, or sorry, when they decide to start the game, they're given the option to solve one of three mini games, and so they gotta basically be told what the status is, right? So what I want to do is I'm gonna call it minigame, or yes, I'm just calling it minigame status. Um, yep, that's what I'm gonna do. And then, oh, this should be a .vue file. Okay. And then in here, it basically is gonna be, it'll be like its own div, and it's gonna do so mission. So your mission is what? Your mission is solve, complete all three mini games to launch to win. Okay. So then, and then at that, then theoretically there'll be three things that they can choose. They will get to choose mini game. So let's see, call it password. Enter a password. There's going to be a game for match sequence or figure out sequence. I think it's like figure out sequence. And then there's going to be a game to match the wires, just like that. Okay. So inside a space game. So that's what we want. Let's hide the side panel now. What we have here now is we have all these different mini games. And so right now, I know that all of these should really well be hidden. And what we're going to do then is just do mini game status is what we're going to bring up. So let's go ahead and import those things. Import mini game status from components / mini game status. And then this is good, this is good, this is good. Okay, yep, has been registered but not used. What did I screw up? Mini. Okay, minigame status, great. So we have our mission here. Based on what they click, that will be the game that's in, that they're in progress with. So if we think of this a little bit like a navigation thing, then we're gonna watch like what they're choosing. So in this case, minigame status, because it's its own component. So here's, I think, the easiest way to do this. So again, we're practicing composition API. So inside our setup function, I'm going to get a reactive helper from Vue. And so the state of this component is a reactive object. And so a couple things, we basically going to have so basically the mini games is a list, and so there are objects that we can say the first one. So the label will be the enter password, but then the game, call it the ID, will be enter. I'm gonna be really boring. Enter password. This is the unique, or let's say mini game enter password (MG). This is like our unique identifier. And then here we have an ID, get away, MG. And then this one is, I'll just call it sequence for now. Label sequence, sequence solver. Let's use the alliteration. We gotta figure out the sequence. And then finally we have an ID. This one is gonna be wire matcher. That's what we're calling it. Label is wire matcher, okay? So then this will basically be a v4 loop on the, well, you're probably thinking, I did not return this, and you would be right. So here's the state. This is where the color bracket organizer is really helpful, because I can see that the purple one goes up here to the setup, yellow one's here. So I would want to return the state, but I do want to spread it out because I don't care to call everything as like the individual properties. So 2 refs is the other thing we need. And then yeah, boom, 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 boom. It's not happy with me. So so it's just a mini game in mini games, and then the ID, or sorry, not even the ID, the key is going to be minigame.id. And then in here, then we would say minigame dot label. Okay, and then there we go. We still have everything. And the main thing is that when we click on the minigame, it should basically emit an event saying which one the user had selected. So let's go ahead and click, and I'm going to call this send. I'm going to call it send minigame. So we're doing basically, we're sending the minigame. Well, that's actually, I'll just call it send selection. And then inside of our reactive, we have const send selection. And I realized it's actually going to need, so the minigame is what's going to be passed in. And then we're basically going to use the context that we get as a second argument. So there's the props that you get first, and then you get the context. So ctx for context dot emit. And then we'll say, what event are we listening to? What would be the most easy way for people to understand this? Select minigame is probably the easiest way to understand that. And that will come with the payload that is the minigame. So I'll just spread out the minigame. This should work the way I want it to. Okay, so there we go. And then I just need to export this for send selection. There we go, send selection here, attached to here, should update. So again, inside of our space game, when they select the mini game, then we will call it register. I'm just call it register selection for now. And then up here, we want to register the selection. So we're tracking the game started, and then so we needed actually selected game. And this is empty at first. So then when we say register, const register selection, it will get a payload. And then we will then say state dot selected game equals payload dot label. Oh no, payload dot ID. That's what I want. Let's see if this works. So register selection, great. All right, so everything should be wired up now. The only thing we need to do is actually show this, basically the current selected game, and then it should be just selected game. It should automatically be exposed. And again, that works because the state is always basically being destructured. And so that's another reason why I like using reactive a lot, is because it's one less thing I have to do to register the ref. So again, if I click test here, you'll see that update. Now if we click here, it should, okay, so that's fine. Something's acting up. I think I know what it is. So inside of our select minigame, I believe I never actually passed the actual minigame. So there we go. That should now do it. So if I refresh, we have tests, and then yeah, mg password, sequence solver. Yep. Okay. And so again, for the sake of brute forcing this, we are saying if selected game is equal to mg, what did I call this one? Again, we would export this to a constant everything so that we wouldn't manage this. But again, we are just building and making stuff set work. Hey, what's up, Mohammed? Just saw the comment. Sorry for the delay. So we have that, and then so if that, then otherwise we're gonna say selected game is equal to mg. What was the second one? Sequence solver. Yes, sequence solver. And then finally, we're not just gonna do an else because we really don't want this to show all the time. Oof. Yes. Okay, hold on. I think I know what I'm doing. Selected game equals mg wire matcher. It'll show that. And then this actually is the else. Even though like I put it there, this is the v else. Otherwise, show this. So if we save and this, oops, why doesn't this work? V else recited, press it, yeah, because I can't spell. Typo. Okay, here we go. This is good. So if I refresh test, boom. All right, we are in the workings. Okay, hold up. And then minigame. So this is what's interesting, right? So then we can say this has a link inside of here. I'm jumping ahead a little bit. Y'all might not be following me, but let's just say down here, there's a link. I'm just calling it a button right now because I technically don't have URLs updating this, so I want to be accurate. So again, it's back to game status. That's really what I want here. And this is a method that basically says, oh gosh, I called it, I want to be send selection. I think that's a good name. Nope, actually no, return to game status. That's really what this function does. And so here, this is what we want. Yes, okay, great. I'm gonna copy that because I'm gonna need that later. So const return to game status, and the reason I say that is once again we need to ctx.emit return to nope, let's keep the same event actually because we can keep it the same, where we can say at select minigame. So select minigame is register selection. Interesting. Okay. I would probably want to rename all these things later, but that's okay. We are working on getting something to work. So select minigame. So ultimately, I think we're going to want to select screen because technically this is the first screen is not a minigame, but again, we're just barreling through. And so in here, ID, yeah, this is not the best, but I'm just going to reset it down to clear. So if I return to game status here, expose it, and click, nothing will happen because we need to register it on the first one. And so similarly, we would have a at select minigame, and then we would say register selection. Similarly, so it would be exactly the same. So here, enter, back to game status. Okay, we're switching back and forth. So again, this is not, I'm already, again, some of you are thinking this is probably a good candidate to already start thinking of refactoring, and I would agree. But right now, we just want to, I think it's important we don't get caught up in a refactoring debate, which is often what happens. So if I go to sequence solver, it looks like I need to drop the button here. Great, and then I'm gonna copy over this piece from here. And so I guess like while I'm like sort of doing this repetitive piece, like it's sort of worth noting at this point. You might be like at this point, like it would typically make sense to probably just go ahead and spend the time to refactor. But given that the time we're spending here is really focused on the learning piece, I think it's important for us to game status emit select mini. Yep. To sort of focus on getting things to work, because then you can actually have a good discussion and you have sort of easy data to see how things should work. So now that we know this, right, already you can see this is why we already see we see redundancies, right? This is done 3 times. But if I refresh this now, go to sequence solve, sorry, wrong one. Sequence solver, go back. Okay, great. So that's how we're emitting that. And then finally, we'll do that one more time for minigame 3. And so in here, I already know I need the register here. Then we can return to game status. Scroll down a little bit more. I want this div, then I can add this button. And then, so we go to wire matcher now. Wire matcher, oh, back to game status. This is the wrong place. I want it down here. There we go. Click, return. Okay, perfect. So now we basically gotten to the point where we can see, I don't like that. Why is it panel, 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 wireboard? I'm not in the wireboard. I'm outside of the wireboard. If I'm outside of the wireboard, there we go. Oh, I think I know why. Nope. Okay, we're good now. The only other thing that's going to bother me a little bit is the minigame here, template-wise, is in the wrong section. So dropping this out. Why is it not like it? This is Vue 3. It should work. Oh, did I do something funny with the minigame class? I did, didn't I? Yeah, position relative. Okay, fine. if you insist for now. I'm just gonna wrap you in a div. It will be componentized later on. Great, okay. Back to game status, okay. Cool. So this is good. And then the last piece, actually, I realize is that by default, I actually want this to be blank. Actually, hold up, commit. Gosh, I can't tell you how many times I forgot to commit and then thoroughly regretted it. Add ability to manage game. I can't type. Between mini games. Great. Hey, what's up, Martin? Thanks for joining, everyone. Okay, so for those who've joined a little bit later, basically what we've done is we have gone through and we have a point where we can navigate basically between. That is weird. I think it's just a CSS thing. I'm not gonna lie. We can go through here and figure out what's going on. Great, wire matcher. So the SVG at this point is not working just because it is requiring us to figure out a way to transform the mouse position from where basically we only wanted to track when it's over here, and then even then we only want to track certain positions. And so while we could sit here and spend the time to figure out the math to make that happen, I think the value here in us having a live stream together is really the programming piece of it. So I think, you know, that eventually would just be like a utility algorithm that does that. And so we'll figure that out later. But for now, I realized though, minigame 3 had a bunch of statuses at one point, but now we can't tell if they've actually matched it correctly. So the only thing I can think of to do that properly then is to, for every, here, so every, where am I tracking it? Okay, match status. So theoretically then I could say, I might actually be able to do it just like this, and you'll see what I mean in a second. So match status, oops. And so if I just say match, I have to say match item, don't worry about this, don't need a unique color, and then match item. Okay, so this should give me, oh, is match status not, oh, did I spell it wrong? I think I did. Match status, not match status. Okay. Save. Here we go. False. So click, 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 and click, click. So that's true. Minigame 1. Back to game status. Okay, so that's just add that small enhancement real quick. Add feedback for wire matching game. Not perfect, but again, as far as like basic functionality, we got it. And the key thing here is that if, let's see, a couple other things logistically speaking, is once they solve all three, so as we can see here, red, blue, green, wrong, red, blue, green, red. Blue, green, red was good, so that one, great. Then we go back and we say enter password and 884424, submit. So once it hits 3, what we want is to basically go like, huzzah, you've won. We want some sort of like, for those who have followed me from the beginning of this, I'm probably gonna do a little confetti thing for like, you won. But okay, so this is the win condition. So how about let's focus on building out the win condition here real quick. And so let's close all of these tabs because it's a lot that's going on. And so game status here is really what kind of needs to be paid attention to. Game status right now is just, it's just a part of our state. And what we want to do is we want to watch the minigames one here, so user.minigames one. And based on the watch here, we would then do something with it. So let's see, I don't think we're doing any watching yet. So I'm gonna go ahead and use watch for this. And so let's code this up. So it will be const, or not even const, it would be watch. And so what property we're watching is we're watching user.minigames1. And then it will have a, basically it should be current value. And then the old value, I believe. So just make sure this works. It would be like this, and we would get the old value there, and then just to make sure we can distinguish it, it'll be like this. So say current and old. Save. So again, this will be the easiest one. So we look at our console log now. We can see here invalid source. Okay, already actually we're seeing something a little weird. Let me refresh real quick, make sure. Invalid source, a watcher can only be a getter, a ref, or reactive object, or an array of these types. Okay, interesting. That, I guess, makes sense. So I wonder if I could... So the ref, we want to pull just... You have to spread two refs. So user minigames 1. All right, so, okay, hold on. So if that's the case, they said a reactive object, this should work. All right, so we refresh, no error, great. Sequence solver, so 519193, submit. Great, so we have the current here, proxy, target, yep, minigames 1, and the old one, target, yep, so that's a little weird. Again, I think the reason for this is because we're watching just the object and the pointer hasn't changed. So if I remember correctly, what we actually have to do this correctly is to have a function here that returns a spread, basically an object that contains a spread of all the different, yes, I think it's like this. So I'll explain why in a second. Too many colored brackets. That's right. Return an object. Declaration expected. What are you talking about? Can't remember how. Hang on, let me look this up. Can't. Parens. Alex, what am I missing? Oh, you mean like around this? Like here? I swear, Alex has shown me the sample for this multiple times and he screwed up. All right, 183442. Submit. Did I do the wrong thing? Oh, that is minigames watched. But it did not, this did not like it because it's not watching user anymore. So, dun 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 dun, two refs user. Yep, that's what I thought I did. And so that should have recreated a new object every single time user changes. But let me refresh it because I have seen some weirdness with Vue CLI sometimes. 278422, 278423, submit. So yeah, you see that player wins, but the watch is not actually updating. Whereas like when we went back to the original one for user, you'll see now that if I do 403226 and submit it, that triggers something. So I did something wrong here. All right, so maybe, and honestly, I keep going back and forth with this. Spread the object without the two refs. Okay, so let's try that, Alex. So the first argument is a function that we invoke that spreads the user object without, right, and so, oh, right, also because, all right. This is just vanilla JavaScript at the end of mine. So let's save, and then boom, let's clear the directory so we don't get confused. 248389, submit. Much better. That's so interesting that you can spread it and it's fine. I guess that makes sense. And I keep grappling with this, which tells me other people is gonna have the same problem, because it's just basically like there's a part of me that like understands the fact that when it comes to reactive properties, everything are individual refs, and so I think I'm confusing the concept here because down here, right, when we're doing the two refs, it's because we need the template to be able to basically like actually have a reactive property. And I think the reason why this is not the case in this part, and again, why I say composition API has these sort of additional learning barriers, because even as someone like I spend a lot of time in this, and still you know, you have these caveats, and so if you're not sort of deep in all the time, no wonder people get confused, is because we really just want to watch an object and we don't really care if the inside is a bunch of refs or not, because we already know that like, hey, we have this property like called user, and if it changes, like go ahead and do the thing. So we can see here that minigames1 is here. Now a little bit of what I'm interested in though is what happens if I did user.minigames1, because that is what we originally just like were trying to do, was to be able to, oh, I didn't even do that right. Minigames1. This was the original idea, was to be able to just refer to this directly. And so this is where I think we haven't actually solved this part where we could do this, because theoretically, I'd like to think that this would work, but it's clear to me that the fact that I'm getting a warning, again, actually, I guess we never really tried this, but if you see 525050 and we submit this, you'll see that I did win, but nothing printed. And so it's saying that it needs to be a ref reactive object or an array of these types. And I think that's why this originally broke, and why I was trying to do that two refs thing, was because theoretically I didn't want it to watch the entire user object. I was like, because again, we want to think sometimes developers, I see Alex's comment here, and you don't need it in an object. Yeah, so hopefully Alex, you might have some context on this that I'm missing, but like I would have thought that similarly, this is just referring to the property in here, but it's clearly giving me a warning here. So it's fine for now. I think we can use the function to return a brand new property basically. So I guess maybe you'd have to do, nope, don't just ignore me. We're just gonna do it the old fashioned. We're just gonna have it watch user basically for now, because at least we can get out. Function return. Look at, I think Alex may have gotten it too. Alex is the bomb diggity. So Alex's suggestion, for anyone who can't see the chat, is to actually just use a function that returns said thing. And so as you see, we want the one property. So now it's minigames1, and I have a very strong feeling that Alex is on the money for this. And yep. Alex, bravo. It's just one of those things. So I think clearly when it comes to this watch docs, there's going to be people who are going to want to be able to be very specific about what they're watching. And so as we can see here, getting familiar with the sort of arrow function that returns what you're looking for, so that's what Vue is watching, is going to be probably one of the most confusing things, I think, for people using Watch, because you kind of like, again, I know that the ergonomics of it would kind of want you to just be able to just do this. And then you would think that maybe there's a translation layer at the bottom. But we have to remember that at the end of the day, Vue is trying to allow you to just leverage normal JavaScript. And so the Vue parts that are in here are the ones that are like, for example, reactive, like these helper methods. That's how we know it's Vue. But if right now, for example, Vue were to come in here and like somehow like hijack the compilation step and like be like, oh no, what they really want is like an anonymous function that returns it, then that's something to consider. Although there's probably somewhere in the API, again, I don't have a I'm trying to think of it. That probably may help with this, but for now, at least we know manually how it works. So thanks to Alex, we now have the ability to just refer to the individual property that we want to actually watch. So here, and then really all we want to say, because we don't really care about the old value anymore. Like that was just a thing just to show that we can actually log the difference. And so what we want to do here is say when if current value is equal to 3, right? Then what we're trying to do is then say state.game status equals player wins. All right, so let's see if this works. Refresh. Enter password. All right, so 7350761. All right, and then so we currently, for those who like have done some game design stuff, we don't have any protection right now around being able to win multiple times with this. So theoretically, I would need to build in like basic scenarios where we actually track only you actually win a certain minigame. But again, for the sake of testing, you can see I can click and 2, 3 player wins. And with that, we have successfully added a win condition for the entire game. And so you can imagine then that we could, so heck, let's just do it. So hold on, let me do this feature, add win condition. All right, so I believe it was Canvas Confetti that I worked with before. And then we are gonna do this again because this thing is fun. Yarn add Canvas Confetti. And then how Canvas Confetti works, in case you haven't used it before, is you basically have this thing that you're gonna call whenever you want it to fire. So let's see, I want fireworks. How about this? Yeah, great. This looks more fun. Okay, so what I would do here then is we're gonna go ahead and let's see. Inside of my sure. No. Okay, so what am I hemming and hawing about? Because at this point, this is the thing where, and I understand why some people are using composables for the term, is that like, at some point you might be wondering like, what is a utility and what is a feature? And I think to some extent, I think that's still something that we're gonna be sort of figuring out and seeing how it works over time with teams. For now, I'm gonna actually consider this a utility over a feature. And the reason I say this is because this is a third-party library, basically. This is not something that we're really trying to tweak or anything. This is not like, it's not logic that is special to your business. And that's probably where I'm gonna start mental model-wise as far as what is a feature and what is actually utility. And so when you're customizing something that's tailored to your app, that's one thing. But if it's something as reusable functionality from a third-party library, like we were talking about, Lodash is a great example of this. You wouldn't want to include all your Lodash features in features, right? They're utility functions, and they always have been. Like that is the mental model that everyone is already familiar with. So I see no reason to sort of rock the boat with that. So again, I'm just going to call this Canvas Confetti. This is actually, this is a JavaScript file, so I'm just going to stick to camel case. And in here, that's what it is. Here we go. And then let's update this a little bit. So export const interval equals set interval permanent count. Again, I think the last time I clear interval, I'm going to say launch confetti. And this, I believe, is referring to itself. And then that's it. Okay. So what I want to do is, well, first of all, we would then say similarly, watch game status. So again, following the same thing we just learned, game status. And then we're going to access the current value. And so if current value equals player wins, and that equal should be a triple or double, doesn't matter. Then we go ahead and let's just say alert player wins. So theoretically, though, I would say there is an argument to be made that when the value is 3, that this is what triggers this alert wins. And the reason why I'm sort of preemptively separating them is because if we think about it just from a game engine perspective, the conditions for winning could change. And so if we're thinking of it like you want to increase the difficulty, add more mini games. So let's say we have 10 mini games and like a beginner one only needs to complete 3, and then 5 and 7. I don't see a reason in sort of making them tightly coupled at this point. I think that would end up causing more confusion in the long run as we like enhanced it. And so why not make these things just atomic pieces that are separate? So even if you think of it like a state machine, there is the condition of which like the mini games that are won, and then there is a condition that is triggering the actual, like, call it the win event. And so if we're checking to make sure this works, once again, let's go inside here. Wrong password. I gotcha. 387345. 1, 2, 3, and then boom, alert player wins. So what we want to do is import our Confetti. Import. I believe I should be able to abstract this utils as canvas Confetti. And into there should be a launch Confetti. Great. Yay for autocomplete, because if that did not show up, I would be like, oh, something's wrong. And then I think I can just call launch Confetti here. Uh-oh. Doesn't like it. Why? Because it says Confetti is not assigned. Okay, I think it's because we have to do import Confetti from canvas Confetti. I believe this is the fix. Whoa! That is not what I wanted. Okay, hang on. That is not what I wanted, because it's kicking off immediately. It is not player wins yet. Why is it launching? Is it? Don't invoke it. Refresh. Still launching. Oh, it's because nope. How did I do this before? All right, throwback. Let's go to Peekaview. Peekaview. Yep, I did the Confetti here. Const anonymous function. Oh. Yep. Okay, got it. Okay, so my instinct was correct. The reason why is because launch Confetti in here doesn't actually make sense, because clear interval Confetti interval. Okay, the reason is because we need to wrap this entire thing. Export const launch Confetti is its own function that would then get invoked. Like all this stuff in here will only invoke when this function is called. That was the difference. It needs to be a function. Yep. So Alex. Yep. Great. Alex, drop in knowledge. All right. So now I can switch this out. Now we shouldn't have it randomly kicking off. Wonderful. Password 4256. 1, 2, 3. Boom, 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 boom. Fireworks. So yeah, we've had it just because I was talking, I think there was so something that I worked on with the team at Netlify, which we recently open source, is the Netlify Explorers. And so if you go to explorers.netlify.com, it's basically like a free learning platform that we're working on for this. So and so basically in here there is a sequence where once you actually achieve your certificate, there was flying confetti. And it's funny because Alex was able to discern that I was the mastermind behind said confetti. So I don't know, it's just, I think given how easy, particularly, I think I was really impressed with how well documented Canvas Confetti is and how easy it was to use, because I've used other Canvas software in the past and it's usually been either super slow and not performant and also just a pain to integrate. So I think that is sort of what's bringing me it's sort of one of the reasons why I've been sort of using it, just because it gives you a lot of great visual feedback for the work that you've done. So now we just dropped feature add confetti to win condition. Okay. And so I think the only thing left to like sort of, as far as like, I think this is really the last piece of our iteration. And then from this point on, I would probably just offline do some, just sort of create, call it like, break it up into its individual pieces so it could be its own standalone app, because you might have gotten some hints, but this is sort of like a precursor for some material I'll be creating for the Jamstack Explorers. So keep an eye out for an announcement on that coming soon. And so, once the cleanup really here, if someone wants to go into the labs and sort of like fork this and do their own thing, and don't worry, the repo for the material I'll be creating, that will be open source as well. So you will see the final version. But as far as things to do, right? So I guess let me add this in for users who are sort of curious of like things to do. So as far as things, let's see, let's do the js.comments. Okay, so things to do. One, minigames one should be by ID and not as a generic number. So meaning that when we emit an event, we actually want to say which minigame was won and basically track that. That is what is won. And so this which would prevent users from submitting the same result multiple times. And that way, and so theoretically also you might even like say another to do, for example, might be to create a win condition for mini games that disables additional play. Because once they've won, there's really no reason, not even a condition, this is a status state, I guess a win state. So the mini game should basically say, hey, you won, you're done, now go back. And then, but of course, if you're thinking like, does it mean the back to game status should go away? I'd say theoretically not, because if the user wants to back out and they go, I didn't want to play this mini game first, they should always have the opportunity to back out. But then at least that would become the primary call to action once the game has actually won. The other thing clearly to do is to create components to better centralize logic and better UI encapsulation. Because right now it is definitely spread out, but we can see that as which might be a fun refactoring exercise for anyone who's like looking for like that sort of practice, is to like look through the 3 mini games and figure out what is it that we can break up, what makes sense to be consistent from like what it's emitting, because this ends up like the way you architect this component, which is sort of like, I call it like my challenge to those who like are looking for ways to practice this, is like you can then, as you see, we can improve this template here, where it's like looping over the same thing. This is 100% should be something that's managed separately. So it's sort of some dataless and architecture things going through. And so, yeah, this is a great point. So Alex just had a wonderful question, actually. So to backtrack a little bit, why are we watching the game status rather than making it a computed property? And nope, Alex is 100% right. There is no real reason. In fact, preferably, it would actually make more sense to refactor this piece, for example, the game status here, to actually be a computed property that would basically already watch everything. And so the reason why I realized I did not do that by default is because usually when, I don't know about you all, but for me, when I'm learning a new concept, or especially because as Alex will probably tell you, this piece right here has bitten me. I just like, for some reason I keep forgetting the fundamental concepts underneath. So I think part of it was just me trying to reinforce it, to be like, if I wanted to watch this property and then do something with it, like what the heck would that be? And so in this case, sorry, the launch confetti is not a good example. You do want a watch property because you're not simply just assigning another value. But in case of the minigames one, this would be a perfect example of where you'd want this to be computed. So let me definitely clarify that, because this one you actually do, this would not be able to be a computer property. So yeah, I think if basically that was just me trying to practice, so that I'm hoping the next time I play around with watch, that I'm not sitting here fumbling going like, oh shoot, it's that object array thing now where I have to like remember how I properly destructure or watch certain things. I have no idea why my iTunes just came up. That was kind of weird. Um, and then so yeah, that's sort of the key pieces. Oh, sorry. And then so what else was I saying? Okay, yes. So I was saying if you wanted to challenge yourself as far as like taking spaghetti code, because let's face it, this is what this is. And the reason why I think I've sort of been working with this format as a way to sort of walk everyone through like when we're building things, it is okay for code to look like this at first. Because a lot of times when we get caught up with the perfect optimization of things, we lose sight of what's actually important, and that's delivering value to our like to users. I think that's really the thing we have to remember. We certainly have to keep a balance of those trade-offs. But if say we needed to deliver this game for whatever reason to people, like at the bare minimum, this is something that people could play with at this point. There are definitely bugs, but then call it alpha, call it beta. But there are people who would be happy to work around bugs in order to actually use, because there's actually value in this, and not maybe not in this particular minigame example, um, but that is certainly what we have to sort of a lot of times consider. Is that I don't know about you, I have encountered plenty of scenarios where I was refactoring something in the midst of building a feature, and then I just broke everything. And then instead of like, and then hours had passed, and instead of actually having something iterable that I was able to commit, I ended up having to either blow everything away because I lost track of the different balls I had juggling in the air. Um, and so that's why, like for me, it's super important when it comes to figuring out what your best value is when it comes to these pieces. So that said, the other thing, the to dos, right? So there's definitely a lot more to dos. There should be an empty to do. There should be an empty state for the user to actually start the game. Because right now, in case you haven't been following from the beginning, there is a start game button, because when I sirens every time. Sorry about that. So basically, I have this basically vision of like when the design is ultimately implemented, there'll be like a space thing, and the user has to click start game for us to actually like kick things off. And that way you can see it's no longer blocking. You have the full mission panel. So that means that you would need to sort of hide this thing first. And then I think those are basically some of the biggest things I think to make this a viable game that like people could play. And then certainly, you know, we would need to clean up like the UI. That's definitely, because there's a lot of like tracking. So for example, you wouldn't need like game status. This game started was just for us. So actually, all of these things would get wiped out. User properties, this would get deleted too, because I think the better UI would be to call it like include like just call it like they can select their mini games. So I'm thinking like even off the top of my head, there's like 3 rectangles here that represent each mini game. And then if they have already been won before, they would basically have like a green, like a success, like a check mark. And then in my head, I'm also thinking it would also make sense, like if the user really wanted to, they could click on it to see their win state again. So they could see like the correct password that they had input maybe. But I just realized that means you'd have to save the state and you'd have to freeze it. So that would be additional complexity. So maybe not. Maybe once the user goes back, it's just disabled. Might be the simplest way to deliver value. And then, and then once all 3 are checked off to indicate that they've won the minigame, boom, confetti, fireworks, which we've already kind of mostly built. Cool. Well, with that, this has been a fun sequence, getting to talk this out with you all and have you build along with me. It's a pity we weren't able to really figure out this SVG piece, but if I get a chance to, I will try and make sure this code is uploaded or to be honest, if I actually managed to figure it out, probably would make for a fun tutorial just to understand sort of the ins and outs of it and how to make that happen. But for now, I think we have enough of a prototype for the space game to deserve its own repo with proper organization and such, so that people can learn from it. Cool. Well, really appreciate all of you who had the chance to join, and for those who are watching the recording, hope this was useful. If you have questions or ideas for future things you'd like to see during a live stream, be sure to drop them in the comments or reach out. I'm happy to always entertain new ideas, or again, like, half the fun of our ability as developers to code is to just build things and then ship them and just let people play with things. So happy to, if you think of other mini games or just other clones that we should do, why not? Let's try it out. Let's see how the process is. So thanks everyone for watching, and I guess keep an eye out. Again, I'm using Twitter primarily to do the individual dev advent pieces, but in case you're not on Twitter and you're looking for a way to see the entire schedule, if you can check out the entire dev advent calendar here, where you'll see basically all the different things that we've launched. And so today was like the space game live stream, but basically each day there'll be some sort of new content. And so yeah, looking forward to sharing that with you. So I guess I will talk to you all next week. So thanks again for watching.